Welcome to the deep dive, where we cut through the noise and get straight to the knowledge. Think about it for a second. Every click, every swipe, every message you send, you're part of this invisible, constant battle happening online. It's all about information, and frankly, we're all involved. So today, we are taking a really deep dive into cybersecurity. We're going to unpack the threats that are lurking out there, look closely at how cyber attacks actually happen, and explore the incredible defenses being built to protect our digital lives, our mission. Pretty simple, really. We want to make this complex world of digital security clear, accessible. We've sifted through a whole stack of sources to give you a kind of shortcut to understanding this digital battleground, turning raw info into real insight. Okay, let's get into it. Before we can even, talk about defending ourselves, we need to understand who we're defending against and what are they actually trying to achieve. What is cybersecurity at its core?
That's the fundamental question, absolutely. Cybersecurity essentially is the practice of protecting our digital stuff, our computers, networks, data, especially critical data from, well, bad actors. It's done using a mix of technology, smart internal processes, and just good practices. The main goal is managing risk, making sure of three key things: confidentiality, keeping your data private; integrity, making sure it's not messed with; and availability, ensuring you can get to it when you need it, sometimes called the CIA triad.
Right, CIA triad. So if that protection fails, what are the real-world consequences? We hear about breaches constantly, but what does it actually mean for a company or, for us?
Oh, it can be absolutely devastating. Hits everything from finances to reputation. Our sources point to three main areas of concern. First, data breaches. This is when information gets accessed or stolen without permission. Think ransomware locking up your files, phishing scams, tricking you out of passwords, or even old weak passwords letting attackers grab your personal data. That's a direct hit on confidentiality.
Okay, so data theft is number one. What else?
Second is service disruptions. These are, well, unplanned events that just make systems unusable. Imagine a big website going down, or even a hospital system becoming suddenly inoperable. This might be malware, or maybe a distributed denial of service, a DDoS attack. That's where they flood a system with so much fake traffic it just collapses.
Right.
That impacts availability.
Right, it makes it impossible to use. And the third?
And third, there's compliance risk. Many industries, and governments too, have really strict rules about data protection. APA for healthcare, GDPR in Europe, PCI DSS for credit cards. If a company fails these standards, especially after a breach, they can face massive fines, legal action. It's about being held accountable.
Okay, this is where it gets really interesting for me. These bad actors we keep mentioning, who are they exactly? It's surely not just the cliche hacker in a hoodie, right?
Oh, definitely not. It's a much wider spectrum. The term threat agent covers anyone, really, inside or outside, who could negatively impact security. Money is a big driver, sure, but motives vary hugely. We can sort of group them. You have your general attackers, threat actors, or hackers. Individuals, yes, but often organized groups like hacking rings. Sometimes they're advanced persistent threats, or APTs.
APTs.
Yeah, APTs. Think of them as the special forces of cybercrime. Highly skilled, often state-sponsored, playing the long game espionage, stealing intellectual property, maybe even destabilizing businesses.
Okay, so state-sponsored actors are in the mix too.
Definitely. We explicitly call out government-sponsored or state-sponsored actors, funded by nations, usually for espionage, stealing secrets, IP funds. Then you have adversaries, people or groups with conflicting interests, maybe a competitor trying to intercept your sales data or someone tampering with hardware before you even receive it. It's about getting an edge, unfairly.
What about those who seem politically motivated?
Right, those are hacktivists. They use hacking skills to push a social or political agenda. Some claim a kind of moral high ground, say they avoid targets like hospitals, but it's still illegal disruption. And then perhaps the most tricky threat, insiders, employees. Either they turn malicious or maybe they get tricked or compromised. They're dangerous because they already have access inside the defenses. And finally, just the broad category of external threats originating from outside the company.
Wow, okay, so that's the who. Now the how. How do these different groups actually do it? You mentioned a toolkit.
Yeah, there's a whole range of methods. We can categorize attacks by how they're executed. Let's start with network-based attacks. These go after the infrastructure itself, routers, switches, servers. For example, backdoor or trapdoor. Think of it like a secret entrance the builders left, bypassing all the normal security checks. Or covert channels. This is sneaky. It's transmitting data using methods not meant for data transfer, maybe subtly changing file timestamps, or the timing between data packets, like sending signals in code.
Clever. What else hits the network?
Buffer overflows. This is where an attacker sends too much data to a program's temporary memory space. It overflows, crashes the program, or worse, lets the attacker inject their own malicious code. And denial of service, DO, or distributed denial of service, DDoS, we mentioned these. Basically, overwhelming a network with junk traffic so legitimate users can't get through, like a massive artificial traffic jam.
Right, shutting things down.
Then there are man-in-the-middle, MITM attacks. Picture someone secretly listening in on your phone call or even changing what you say before the other person hears it, intercepting and potentially altering communication. A related one is replay attacks. They just capture a legitimate communication, like a login attempt, and replay it later to gain access. They don't even need to crack the code, just reuse it. Attackers also use port scanning. It's like checking all the doors and windows on a building to see which ones are unlocked or weak, looking for open network ports.
And the infamous ransomware.
Absolutely. Ransomware. Digital kidnapping, essentially. Locks up your data or systems, demands a ransom payment. It's huge right now. Reverse shell attacks are interesting. Instead of breaking in, the attacker tricks the victim's machine into connecting out to them. This often bypasses firewalls. And spoofing? That's all about impersonation. Faking an email address, faking a website login page, DNS spoofing, making a malicious link look legitimate. Hyperlink spoofing. It plays on trust.
Okay, that covers the network quite a bit. What about the software itself, the apps we use daily?
Good question. That leads to application-based attacks, targeting specific software like databases or websites. A classic is structured query language, SQL injection. Imagine a website asks for your username in a form. Instead of typing a name, an attacker types a database command. If the site isn't secure, it might execute that command, potentially spilling database secrets.
Ah, tricking the website itself.
Exactly. Then there's cross-site scripting, XSS. Here, the attacker injects malicious code not into the server, but into the website itself. When you visit that compromised website, the malicious script runs in your browser, potentially stealing your login cookies or session data. It attacks the user through the site. And, of course, mobile code, things like viruses, software designed to spread and infect other programs. Some are really advanced, like polymorphic viruses that change their own code to avoid detection by antivirus software.
So networks, applications. What about attacks on just my laptop or my phone?
Yeah.
Individual devices.
Yep, those are host-based attacks, focused on a single device. Brute force attacks are common. An automated script just tries password after password, millions of combinations until it gets lucky. Keystroke logging installs software, or even hardware sometimes, that records every single thing you type. Passwords, emails, messages, captured. It's very. The umbrella term for all this nasty software viruses, worms, trojans is malware. Software doing things it shouldn't, unauthorized things. And with phones being so central, rogue mobile apps are a risk. Apps that look legit in the App Store, but are designed to steal your info or gain access once installed.
It feels like so many of these rely on tricking people, not just technology. That's the social engineering part.
Absolutely. And social engineering attacks are often the most effective because they exploit human psychology, trust, fear, curiosity, helpfulness. It's about manipulation. Phishing is the most well-known. Those fake emails asking for info or urging you to click a bad link. Spear phishing is more targeted. Looks like it's from someone you know, maybe HR or IT, addressed directly to you. Much harder to spot.
Right, more personal.
Even more targeted is business email compromise, BEC, or whaling. They go after executives trying to trick them into wiring money or revealing sensitive company secrets. Big money involved there. Pretexting is creating a whole fake story or scenario. Someone calls pretending to be tech support, needing your password right now to fix an urgent problem. Creates urgency and pressure. Catfishing is building a fake online persona to lure someone into a relationship, usually to get money or gifts. And phishing, that's phishing over the phone, voice phishing, often using spoof caller IDs to look legitimate.
It really does sound like spycraft sometimes. Are there still, like, old-school physical break-ins involved, too?
Oh, definitely. Never underestimate physical on-premises attacks. Direct physical access could be intercepting discarded equipment, just grabbing old hard drives from the trash. Amazing what gets thrown out. Piggybacking or tailgating. Following someone authorized through a secure door. Simple but effective. Tampering. Physically messing with hardware. Unplugging in rogue devices, rewiring things, and just plain theft. Stealing laptops to servers, backup tapes. The physical items containing the data.
And you hear about attacks that hit whole industries, like targeting software lots of companies use. What's that called?
That falls under supply chain attacks. Instead of hitting the target directly, they compromise something the target relies on, like a software vendor or a hardware supplier. Could be embedded software code, malicious code hidden inside legitimate software before it's distributed. Everyone who installs it gets infected. or pre-installed malware on hardware. Imagine buying a batch of USB drives for your company, and they arrive with malware already on them. Watering hole attacks are common too. Attackers compromise a website they know people in a specific industry often visit. They just wait for their targets to come to them.
It feels like a complex dance, all these methods. But you mentioned stages. It's not just random chaos. Is there a typical sequence?
You're right, it's usually methodical. While specifics vary, attacks often follow a pattern, a kind of cyber kill chain. It starts with reconnaissance, gathering intelligence, like casing a bank before a robbery. They learn about the target's network, employees, software, potential weak spots, open ports, unpatched systems, looking for the easiest way in,
Okay, scouting first. Then what?
then gaining access. Using the info from reconnaissance to actually breach the network or system, exploiting that vulnerability they found, getting a foothold. Once they're in, the goal is often escalation of privileges. They might get in as a low-level user, but they want admin rights, the keys to the kingdom, so they try to get credentials for more powerful accounts.
So get in, get more power then.
Then, maintaining access. They don't want to get kicked out. They'll install backdoors, maybe multiple ones, so they can get back in, even if their initial entry point is closed. Persistence is key. After that comes the main event, network exploitation and exfiltration. This is where they achieve their objective. Stealing data, encrypting files for ransom, disrupting systems, whatever their goal was.
And finally, they try to disappear.
Exactly. Covering tracks, they want to erase evidence of their presence. Disabling audit logs, clearing event logs, deleting tools they used, modifying files to hide changes, make it hard to figure out who did it, how they did it, or even that they were there at all.
Wow. Okay. With this huge range of threats and this multi-stage attack process, how does any organization even start to build a defense? It seems overwhelming. What's the strategy?
It can feel overwhelming without a solid framework. One key guide many organizations use is the COSO framework. COSO stands for the Committee of Sponsoring Organizations. They're known for their framework on internal controls, and it applies really well to cyber risk.
COSO, how does that help with cybersecurity specifically?
Well, COSO helps define clear objectives for cybersecurity. Things like operational objectives, basically, protecting the IT assets so the business can run, reporting objectives, making sure cyber issues don't compromise financial or other reports, and compliance objectives, sticking to laws and regulations like NIST, HIPAA, GDPR, avoiding those big fines.
Okay, so it sets the goals. Does it say how to achieve them?
It does. It outlines 5 crucial components. First, the control environment. This is the tone at the top. Does senior management actually care about cybersecurity? Do they promote awareness? That sets the stage. Second, risk assessment. Constantly looking at threats, internal and external. How likely are they? What's the potential impact? You need to know your risks. Third, control activities. These are the actual policies and procedures put in place to manage those risks, the things people actually do. Fourth, information and communication, making sure everyone knows the policies, how to spot threats, what to do if they see something suspicious, training, meetings, alerts. And fifth, monitoring activities, regularly checking that the controls are working. Things like penetration testing, vulnerability scans, reviewing logs. It's an ongoing process.
That makes sense as a high-level structure, but what about the everyday rules, the specific guidelines for using tech, especially since, like you said, people are often the target?
Exactly. You need to translate that strategy into daily practice. There's a hierarchy. At the top are security policies, broad strategic documents. They define the scope, roles, responsibilities, what level of risk is acceptable, the foundation. Below that are security standards. These are mandatory benchmarks needed to meet the policy goals, like saying, we will adhere to the NIST framework, or we must be GDPR compliant. Specific targets. And then you have standard operating procedures, SOPs. These are the detailed step-by-step instructions for specific tasks, how to configure a firewall, how to onboard a new employee securely, the how-to guides.
Got it. Policies, standards, procedures. What are some really crucial policies organizations need?
Oh, several are vital. The Acceptable Use Policy, AUP, is huge. It tells employees what they can and cannot do with company technology. Using personal devices, websites they can't visit, software they can't install, consequences for breaking rules. It says clear boundaries. Mobile device security policies are essential now too. Strict rules for smartphones, tablets. Things like requiring strong passcodes, MFA, encryption, rules about connecting to public Wi-Fi.
Yeah, everyone has a phone.
Exactly. Which leads to bring your own device, BYOD policies. Allowing personal devices for work is common, but risky. How do you monitor it without invading privacy? Who owns the data on the device? What happens if it's lost or stolen? BYOD opens up new risks. data leakage, compliance issues, new ways for attackers to get in. So the policy has to be really carefully thought out.
All right, let's shift to the tech itself. How do these policies and frameworks translate into actual defenses? The firewalls, the software?
Right, the technical safeguards. For network protection, a big one is network segmentation or isolation, basically dividing the network into smaller, controlled zones. If one part gets compromised, it's harder for the attack to spread to others, like fire doors in a building.
Containing the damage.
Precisely. Firewalls are fundamental. They act like digital security guards at the network borders, inspecting traffic, blocking anything malicious or unauthorized based on rules. Virtual private networks, VPNs, are key for remote access. They create an encrypted tunnel over the public internet so employees working from home or traveling can connect securely. For wireless networks, Wi-Fi protected access, WPA, WPA2, WPA3, are security protocols that encrypt the traffic between your device and the router. WPA3 is the current strongest standard.
What about securing the actual computers and phones connected to the network?
That's endpoint security. Security measures on each individual device, laptop, server, phone. This includes antivirus software, local firewalls, strong authentication, making sure each device is protected. And a broader concept is system hardening. This means reducing the attack surface across all IT systems, disabling unused services, removing unnecessary software, configuring things securely. For databases, it might mean tight access controls and encryption. For servers, maybe strict physical segregation and regular security testing, basically locking things down.
Okay, so protect the network, protect the devices. What about controlling who accesses what? That seems critical.
Absolutely critical. This is authorization and authentication, controlling access. A major shift in thinking here is zero trust. The motto is never trust, always verify. It assumes threats could be anywhere inside or outside. So it requires continuous verification every time a user or device tries to access anything. No more automatic trust just because you're already on the network.
So constantly checking credentials.
Constantly validating, yeah. Then there's the principle of least privilege. Give users and systems only the absolute minimum permissions they need to do their job, nothing extra. This limits the damage if an account gets compromised. We have to watch out for privilege creep, where permissions slowly accumulate over time. Related is need to know. This focuses specifically on data access. Employees should only be able to see the specific data they need for their role, not everything. And whitelisting is another approach. Instead of trying to block all known bad applications, blacklisting, you only allow pre-approved known good applications to run. Anything else is blocked by default.
How do we actually prove someone is who they say they are? You mentioned passwords, but they seem like a weak link sometimes.
They often are. This is identification and authentication techniques. First, identification is claiming who you are, like entering your username. Authentication is proving it typically with a password, but passwords alone aren't enough anymore. That's why multi-factor authentication, MFA, is so important. Using 2 or more different factors, something you know, password, something you have, a phone app code, a security key, or something your biometrics.
Like fingerprint or Face ID?
Exactly. Biometrics use unique physical traits, fingerprints, facial recognition, iris scans, increasingly common. But password management is still vital because passwords are still everywhere. The weaknesses are well known, easy guesses, reusing passwords, sharing them, not changing them. So password complexity rules are key. Longer is better. NIST suggests 8 characters minimum, but many places now require 12 or 15, plus a mix of character types and regular changes. Crucially, for password storage, companies should never store passwords in plain text. They use hashing. It turns the password into a scrambled, fixed-length string. It's a one-way process. You can't unhash it. When you log in, the system hashes the password you type and compares the hash to the stored one.
That makes sense. Much more secure. Okay, so we've covered access. What about protecting the information itself? Keeping sensitive data private and confidential. Is there a difference?
There is a subtle difference, yeah. Privacy is more about an individual's right to control their personal information, what's collected, how it's used. Confidentiality is the organization's duty to protect the information it has collected from unauthorized access. A huge focus is personal identifiable information, PII, data that can identify a specific person name, social security number, address, biometrics. Organizations need strong policies to protect PII. Collect only what's necessary, limit access, review it regularly, have secure disposal plans.
How do they protect data during development or testing? You can't always use real sensitive data there, right?
Exactly. That's where data obfuscation comes in, making data unusable or less sensitive while keeping it realistic for testing. Encryption is a core method. Scrambling data using cryptography so it's unreadable without the correct key, like a secret code. Tokenization replaces sensitive data like a credit card number with a random, meaningless value, a token. The real data is stored securely elsewhere in a token vault. The token keeps the format, so systems still work, but the token itself is useless if stolen. Very common in payments. And masking. This replaces sensitive data with similar-looking but fake data. Shuffling names, scrambling numbers, replacing parts with X's. It preserves the data structure for testing or analysis, common in healthcare research, for example.
You mentioned encryption. Are there different kinds?
Yes, two main types. Symmetric encryption uses the same secret key to both encrypt and decrypt. It's fast, good for large amounts of data. But the challenge is securely sharing that single key. Asymmetric encryption uses two keys: a public key, shared openly to encrypt, and a private key, kept secret, to decrypt, or vice versa for digital signatures. It's slower, but solves the key sharing problem and provides authentication. Used heavily in secure websites, HTTPS, and blockchain.
What about hashing versus encryption? You mentioned hashing for passwords.
Good distinction. Hashing is one way. Scrambled data, can't unscramble it. Used for integrity checks, does the file match the original hash, and password storage. Encryption is two-way. Encrypt, then decrypt with a key. Used for confidentiality, keeping data secret during transfer or storage. Sometimes they're used together for extra security.
Is there tech that specifically stops data from leaking out?
Yes. Data loss prevention, DLP systems. These are designed to detect and prevent sensitive information from leaving the organization's control inappropriately. They often use pattern matching, looking for formats like credit card numbers or social security numbers in outgoing emails or file transfers. For example, network-based DLP scans network traffic. Remember Alice at North Point Hospital? If she tries to email a patient file unencrypted, the DLP system can detect the PII patterns, automatically encrypt it, or block it entirely, preventing a breach. Endpoint-based DLP runs on individual computers, monitoring actions like copying files to USB drives or printing sensitive documents and blocking them if they violate policy.
Okay, that's a lot of defensive tech. But you said the landscape is always changing. How do organizations keep up? And what happens when, something inevitably gets through?
Great question. It's a constant effort. Staying ahead involves vulnerability management, proactively finding and fixing weaknesses before they're exploited. The NIST Cybersecurity Framework, CSF, provides a great structure here with its 5 functions. Identify, protect, detect, respond, recover. Organizations use tools called vulnerability scanners to automatically check systems against databases of known flaws. They also do periodic, broader vulnerability assessments. A key resource is the Common Vulnerabilities and Exposures, CVE Dictionary. It's a standard list of known vulnerabilities, so everyone's talking about the same flaws.
And fixing those flaws is patching, right?
Exactly. Patch management is crucial. Applying software updates, patches, from vendors as soon as possible to close those known security holes. Attackers love targeting unpatched systems. And the overall strategy is layered security or defense in depth. Don't rely on just one thing. Use multiple layers: firewalls, intrusion detection, endpoint security, user training, policies, physical security. If one layer fails, others might catch the attack. Redundancy is key.
So layering defenses. But okay, let's say, despite all that, an attack does happen, an incident occurs. What's the playbook then? It can't just be panic mode.
Definitely not panic mode. That's why organizations need a well-defined incident response plan, IRP. It's a documented plan. Who does what tools to use, how to communicate, the steps to take to detect, respond, and limit the damage. It's important to distinguish things, too. An event is just something happening. An adverse event has negative consequences, maybe a system crash. But a computer security incident specifically involves malicious human intent, ransomware, phishing success, data theft. That triggers the IRP.
Makes sense. What are the typical steps in that plan?
Most IRPs follow about 7 key steps. First, preparation. Getting ready before anything happens, having the team, tools, training, vulnerability assessments done. Second, detection and analysis identification. Recognizing something abnormal is happening and confirming it's actually a security incident. Third, containment. Stop the bleeding. Isolate affected systems, disconnect parts of the network, prevent the attacker from doing more damage.
Okay, stop the spread, then get rid of it.
Right. Fourth is eradication. Removing the threat, the malware, the attacker's access. Restoring systems from clean backups. Maybe doing forensic analysis to understand exactly what happened. Fifth, reporting. Communicating effectively to management, IT teams, legal, maybe regulatory bodies or affected customers, depending on the incident. Sixth, recovery. Getting things back to normal operations, often done carefully, in phases, to ensure the threat is truly gone. And finally, seventh, post-incident activity lessons learned. Critically reviewing what happened, how the response went, what could be improved, updating the plan, maybe changing controls, learning from the experience.
That's a thorough process. How do companies make sure that plan actually works under pressure?
Testing. You have to test the IRP regularly. Simulations are common. Tabletop exercises where the team talks through a scenario. Or actual penetration tests, pen tests, where ethical hackers simulate a real attack to see how the defenses and the response team hold up, annually at least. They also track IRP metrics, things like mean time to detect, MTTD, how long it took to notice the attack, mean time to contain, MTTC, mean time to repair, MTTR. These numbers help measure and improve response effectiveness.
So, metrics and practice runs.
Yes, and post-incident reviews after real incidents are intense, usually involving senior management and experts, plus ongoing walkthroughs that simulate specific scenarios involving different departments. How would finance handle exposed PII? How does HR revoke access quickly, making sure policies match reality?
Is there anything else organizations do to cushion the blow if an attack is successful?
One major mitigation strategy is cyber insurance. It doesn't prevent attacks, but it provides financial help for the aftermath. It can cover losses from business interruption, costs of responding to the incident, ransomware payments, though that's complex, legal fees, replacing systems, even costs related to reputational damage. But getting insurance usually requires demonstrating strong security practices beforehand, background checks, compliance, good IT controls like firewalls and MFA, disaster recovery plans, employee training, sometimes even mandatory pen testing.
Okay, we've covered a massive amount of ground here, from the attackers to the attacks, the defenses, the response. What really stands out to you from all this? It's definitely more than just computer hacking.
Oh, absolutely. What stands out is that it's a continuous dynamic cycle. Identify, protect, detect, respond, recover. It never really stops. The threats are always evolving, so the defenses, the technology, the policies, the people have to evolve too. It's a constant process of adaptation and vigilance.
Yeah. Constant vigilance. And it strikes me how much of this isn't just for giant corporations. So many attacks target individuals through social engineering or exploit weaknesses in our personal devices, phones, smart home gadgets. It really brings it home, makes you think about your own digital safety. So, thinking about that personal angle, given how common social engineering is and how fast digital threats change, what's maybe one concrete, simple step you listening right now could take today? Applying something like least privilege or maybe setting up multi-factor authentication on a key account in your own life, how could that one small change maybe shield you from a whole range of potential attacks? Something to think about. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive.